YouTube. You're probably watching this video because of the title there. It's making cider on the cheap. Now, I am fortunate enough that I've got a few apple trees in the garden, so I've got about 6 bags of these apples, and of course, didn't cost me anything, so that's part of the cheap side. Now, as I say, good 6 bags or so there, which I'm going to mix down in a mixer over here and then take out to the garage to press. The other thing, part of it on the cheap, is all these vessels, fermentation buckets. There's a beer bucket here, beer barrel. I've got numerous funnels, jugs, hydrometers, siphon hoses, steering spoons, which are all in here at the minute sterilising. I picked all that up, and there's probably 20 odd flip top bottles. I picked all them up on Facebook Marketplace and only paid a tenner for them. And it looks like it's only been used once. I mean, there was sterilising fluids and everything there, which were basically full. So another cheap part of the job, cost a tenner if you shop around on Facebook Marketplace. The only expensive thing here is a Magimix food processor. I was just going to buy a cheap one. Again, you can pick them up for a tenner on Marketplace, but then again, you might get a cheap one and you'll burn the motor out crushing all these apples. But this one is a Magimix, which is nearly commercial grade, heavy duty. So I'm going to chop all the apples down through this and then take them out to the press, which I've got in the garage, which I'll show you a bit later in the video. So now I'm going to start getting the apples washed, get them through the blender, get them all pulped up, and we'll take it from there. Right, I've got the apples, the first batch washed off, ready to put through the blender. A few little bad bits in which I'll just chop out before I throw them in there, but some of them are not going to go through the hole, so I'm going to have to half them, which take a little extra time, but hey, no problem. Now, what I didn't say earlier on, this is my first time making cider, so I guess a little bit of good luck and just for that here. We should be doing okay. It's from looking at other people's YouTube videos, it looks relatively straightforward. I'll find out once we get going. So let's get cracking. Now it's taking this down quite nice. I've got the strainer bag on my press, so we're not going to lose all the bits, but already I'm getting juice in the bottom of this pot. It's going to take me another probably an hour to get through all of these. I guess putting too many in at once as well, you don't completely chop them, but I guess it's not too much of a problem. Right, as you can see from this, we're getting a nice slop there, and I can see, maybe you can't pick that up on the camera, we've already got juice in the bottom, so it's already self-juicing itself. Okay, right, that's my first bag of apples. One little thing I learned is don't get too greedy when you're making the mix in this. You get the odd, put too much in and it doesn't quite get all the apples. Obviously you don't want to stick your fingers in. But yeah, I would say that was about 3/4 of a bag of apple there, and that's what I've ended up with. So quite happy with that. There's a lot of weight in it, so hopefully we'll get a lot of juice out of it. So I'm going to crack on, get all my apples minced, and then we'll get out there and press the juice out of them. Okay, now I'm going to get this pulp over into this press here. This is floppy stuff here, man. Should get some good juice out of this. So be ready. This is really sloppy, so I'm hoping I'm going to get a fair amount of juice out of this. Right, already she's starting to juice out. Just probably hear that trickling away. I've seen some fellas where the apples are they're not as mushy as this when they've crushed them, so I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Like I was saying earlier, this is my first time at it, so fingers crossed. Now, trying to get the press on this is going to go wild. Already juice pouring out of it. Into the middle, so it don't all ooze out the top. Now again, this press, another thing, doing it on the cheap. I picked this up again on Facebook Marketplace. Oh, there she goes, just pushing it by hand. And I paid 20 quid for it. I think new they're about 60. So if you're looking, you know, just to save a few quid here and there, that's the way to go, I feel. Just Jenga these blocks in. And he had these extra blocks as well, because he said it only came with 2 in the original kit. So he's cut these out of those. Top. Turn the tap on. Now let's get you a view of this pouring. Flowing pretty well. starting to get a bit of pressure on it now. Now, out of that bag, I've got nearly a gallon of juice out of that. Probably about 7 pints. So I guess there's still probably another easy half a pint to get out of this. I'll just keep tweaking it up. Right, after squeezing all my apples, I've got what, 20 litres. There's 4 1/3 of a gallon there. I put my hydrometer in and it's on the little red scale which says on that start beer, so I guess I'm not too far out with that. So I'm going to put a couple of Camden tablets in there and just let it settle for 24-48 hours before I put my yeast in and start it fermenting. Right, I've got a couple of Camden tablets in here. So what I've been reading, give it a good stir right to the bottom. Obviously sterilised spoon. And everything I've read, they say get as much air in it as you can. Now what I'm going to do is leave this for about 24 to 48 hours anyway, like I was saying earlier. Yeah, getting plenty of air in. See it oxygenate it. And this thing's still dripping, but I'll take the pressure off now. Hopefully that'll stop. I don't need it anymore. A great little bit of kit that. It's done its job for the day. So now I've got it, left it to sit for a few days. I'll come back to you and we'll look at putting the yeast in and the fermentation plug on it. So see how she goes from there. But smells nice and fruity. So hopefully we'll get some good cider out of this. We'll be definitely drinking some at the end to see whether it's a fail or a success. So I'll come back in a couple of days and we'll update you then. Okay, we're back 48 hours later after adding my Camden tablets, and this is what we've got now. But she seems to be clearing up quite nicely in here. But today what we're going to do is add the yeast. Now before I do that, I'm going to take a hydrometer reading. It's all been sterilised, my hands are clean. So we want to be, if I can read this scale again, about 105 or within this red mark, so we can start brewing. Now, okay, we have a specific gravity of about 42, so I'm going to make a note of that because throughout my fermentation process, obviously want to make sure we stop fermenting properly at the end of that. So I'm going to write that down here, 42, the gravity. And then now what I'm going to do is add the yeast to it. Now before I put the yeast in, I'm going to give it a stir, get everything all set up, put the yeast on, leave it for about 15 minutes and then give it another stir. Okay, now I'm going to sprinkle some cider yeast on it. This is some Young's cider yeast. This packet says does up to 5 gallons, sufficient for 23 litres of 5 gallons. I've got 4.5 gallons here, so I'm just going to put the lot in. Now what it tells me to do is sprinkle the contents onto the surface of the wort and wait for 15 minutes, then stir. So let me just open this packet up. Give it a nice sprinkle all over the top here. This is the start of me cider on the cheap, remember. We're doing this all with minimal cost. So this is sprinkling nice and even over the top here. Right. Okay, we'll This is a little bit stuck in the pouch to make up for that half a gallon. Yeah, so let's see what happens here. I can already see it's starting to settle into it a little bit. Some of it's starting to sink. So temperature, we've got this at, it's about 19 degrees. I've got a temperature gauge on the side here. So the right sort of temperature. So let this settle for 15 minutes and I'll get back to you and we'll give it a stir. Right, it's had its 15 minutes of settling time for the yeast to go in there, and a lot of it sunk to the bottom. Now it says give it a good stir. Okay, well it's had a good stir. Now I'm gonna give it another couple of weeks to ferment it, to let it ferment. I'm gonna put the water in there once I've moved it. I'm gonna take this now into the house because the temperature in the garage fluctuates quite a lot, you know, from the night into the day. So I've got a little spot in the house to put this. So as I say, we had a reading of about 42 specific gravity on the hydrometer, so I've now got to monitor this, and it says we need to be at 1 for bottling. So once this is all fermented out, we get it down to the bottling stage, we'll get some videos together on, you know, the bottling stage of it. So hopefully we should have some good brew at the end of this. See you in a few weeks time.